Okay, so we're on episode 7, and I actually don't remember what all I've been calling these episodes. If that gives like any type of timeline for how these are recorded. Give me a second.
The last one was 3, 2, 1, which makes... Okay.
Okay, I got some other series that I do mixed up, because I was gonna comment about the episode names maybe not making sense. Yeah, I completely messed up my brain relation on what I named these relative to like other stuff I've worked on. Okay, cool. Jumbled ramble right off the start that doesn't need to be in here, but we're gonna leave it because we do this all raw. No retakes, no reshoots, just in the moment, whatever happens. Yeah. Okay, so I actually got relatively inspired to do this ramble based off of just like some things that have like been in my head recently. But this also requires being a bit more real. So we're gonna do our best. Yeah. So today we're gonna be talking about mortality, and society and social sciences, I guess. So welcome to the party. Anyway, what spurred this on is I guess, in all honesty, what originally led to this conversation was Sonic and the Black Knight. So I talked to one of my friends about this recently, and they just genuinely did not remember what happened in this game. So whenever I made the passing claim that Sonic and the Black Knight probably shaped my philosophy as a child, they could not comprehend that in the slightest, which is fair. It sounds like a really absurd statement. And if you haven't played Sonic and the Black Knight, that might not make sense to you either, but I'm hoping if you've played it, you could at least see the vision. So, for those that didn't play it, Sonic and the Black Knight actually kind of deals with like this really weird twist where it starts like it's just the Arthurian legend, but at some point it's swapped, which is near the Act 2 portion of the game, the second half, which this is your spoiler warning for Sonic and the Black Knight for the Nintendo Wii, if you haven't played it. If you have played it, if you haven't played it, I don't know if I'd say I recommend it. The controls are a bit weird, and it's really one of those things where I think you enjoy it. I think it's a fun speed game, because I've speedrun that game. And passing claim to fame is I think I had what was competitive for the world record of the final boss for a little bit. But I need to go double check. But I'm pretty sure that's right. Anyway, so what happens at the in the second half is after you beat the Black Knight, there's this girl named Merlina who is the mage. Okay, so anyway, it's alluded to earlier, like how she feels about like the fragility of life and like the passing of time, and it's done beautifully with a flower metaphor, because a flower wilts, and it's really beautiful whenever you get to see it in full bloom, but it doesn't say like that. Really simple. Again, they made this simple so a child could follow it, but like other stories have done similar things, right? And the flower motif is so important that they use it for her final boss transformation. So, cool stuff. Anyway, she wants to keep her kingdom in eternity, so nothing ever ages, wilts, withers, decays, dies. And obviously, this is a problem, because that's the error to progression. And Sonic likes living free, so he won't be shackled to the chains of eternity. But no, unironically, that's it. Eternity is a shackle because you can't grow, you can't change, you can't do other things. if you're living in this perfect eternity where no change occurs. To change is to grow and all that. And like, anyway, we got a clash happens. Some insanely good Crush 40 like music happens, and then you get the end, and Sonic says, "Ha! You gotta relish the imperfections." That's what makes it free. So it's kind of this really cool story that not like heavily, but pretty blatantly does talk about the shackles of eternity, as well as the shackles of mortality. It's really cool. Anyway, I'm a sucker for stories like that, like just the endless now type thing, where a character, good or bad, basically makes a decision to freeze everything, or is presented with the ability to freeze everything. Because, well, it's one of those things that I think the less experienced you are with the harshness that life can dish out, the more you kind of glance over at this type of dilemma as really surface level. It's kind of like I feel like people view it the same way those who don't understand the nuance of mental health view like the wide push of mental health in JRPGs, right? Where they'll view it all encapsulating as every single thing is a lens of mental health, even though these are all different lenses. These all touch on different things, right? Because it's way bigger than that. So you can have a bunch of games with the exact same premise, but they all do it differently, or they all have their own creative twist on it, and that's what's important. So I kind of view this type of story trope the same way, and I think that people that just haven't experienced or haven't been presented with a situation in life that would warrant them wanting this will ever really get it, which is fine. Because whenever I was little, and I was first presented with this story, I didn't get it either, and I kind of shrugged and said, "This is stupid. Why would you want this? This is fake." Which it's a no-brainer, right? But now that I'm a bit more seasoned, I've seen a little bit of what life can dish out. My opinion of that's drastically shifted. And I feel like every single time I'm presented with one of these stories, I've been put into that situation in my life where I've had to confront this type of thought process. So I feel like I never have the exact same thoughts on this story and this decision time to time, which is cool. But I don't think I've ever been as black and white about it since the first time I was exposed to this in Sonic and the Black Knight. Every other time I feel like there was a lot more nuance I was willing to argue it. And I think that just comes down to a lot of the exposure I've had to this type of thought throughout my life. And that's not to say like I lived a horrible life or anything. It's just 100% went through things, which is fine. Everyone does. And this isn't like my way of like brushing off like what's happened to me. It's just me trying to be as depersonalized as possible about my own experiences for something that I'm intending to put on the internet, right? I don't need people in my head and all that. But yeah, so there's been a lot of like thoughts about like mortality and like this decision of like what would you actually do if you could truly like keep everything as it was. Maybe time can still like, and we can allow for like nuance of argumentation of like, oh, time can still pass, people can still change, people like, you could just guarantee maybe that like the harshness of reality wouldn't rip away from your piece. And even then, I think you can model this question as well as you want to, but fundamentally, I want to always disagree with it, because I'm a big believer that the imperfections are what make everything worth living. I think it's really easy to idealize the perfection and a perfect world, but I think it's even harder to find beauty and solace in the imperfection. I tell this to I tell this to people a lot, and like I've mentioned this to people like I've dated, right? Is that I don't want you to be perfect. If you want to improve yourself, I will always support that, but I never want you to feel like you need to be perfect for me. Because, you're human. Ideally, right? But yeah, you're a person. People are innately flawed, and I want to like you for you and your flaws all as one. Like, you can't like truly separate yourself from the flaws of humanity, and everyone has their own different flaws, and I'm not saying, oh, I like everyone, because that's not true. There's some people I just don't have the same like drive and affinity for. But for the ones that do, I make the effort, because I don't think that your imperfections should be a shackle to be ashamed of. And if other people think they are, that's fine. That's within their ability to. But I just think life and people just get a little bit more beautiful whenever you can find the beauty and the joy in other people being able to just be, right? Like no external pressure to be someone they're not and all that. Anyway, slight derailment there, but I think also because we're innately flawed, I don't think two people ever have the same like fundamental answer to this, because your reasoning comes from your own personal experience. Because if you've never experienced a moment in your life where you've wanted things to stay the same, desperately, like to the viscosity that leads people to fuck over all these fictional worlds, right? You'll never understand it, and it'll always seem small and insignificant to you. But for instance, if you've, in a sense, lost everything, maybe you lost someone you cared about, right? Or maybe like something you'd been betting your entire life on just didn't happen, or didn't go through, or something you prayed would never happened, then yeah, it can put a lot of people into these situations where they wish it. I will say one thing that that gets me is that a lot of these are fundamentally like rooted in the loss of human mortality, and I think that that's where a lot of people relate to them hardest, right? There's like a I mean, if I had a dollar for every single time somebody I know that lost somebody, that just the only thing that they would say about it was, I wish they were still here, right? Well, first of all, I'd be a billionaire. Second of all, yeah, that's just how you feel, right? I think loss is really hard for people to really imagine, because it requires fundamentally confronting that there will come a time that you've said the very last thing you'll ever say to somebody, and they have to live on knowing you're not there anymore, or you have to live on knowing they're not there anymore. And I think that most people don't want to think about that, and I think that's fine. You don't need to confront like stuff like this, but I just think it's like whenever you confront thoughts like this, most people hate it, and most people who've experienced this don't like it and don't process it well, and it makes sense, and it's why I think these stories are so fundamentally humanizing to me, because I think that, like, on some fundamental nature, right, we've probably all been that person at some point. The person that wished everything could stop, and stand still in the moment to just give them 5, 10, 20 more seconds. The person that's wanted nothing more than to reverse time and prevent something from ever happening, or make it so something did. I mean, we've all been there, like, fundamentally, right? Maybe to differing like levels of impacts, but I'd like to believe that like this is like a core like emotion. that people will experience. Anyway, yeah. I don't really know. This is just a truly like unfiltered me talking. But for better or for worse, just I wouldn't necessarily say this is a new thing for me, because it's not. I've thought about mortality and the fickleness of it, and what happens to all parties after a lot in my life. And I'm not going to give solid reasons on why that is, but if you know me, or you have some line of communication with me and you don't know why that is, or you're aware and you want to talk about it, feel free to reach out. I've got a lot of thoughts about this, and I'm pretty open about at least a good amount of stuff that's occurred. And also, like, I try to like romanticize the fact that if I can talk about it to other people, it can help them rather than it's for me. Because if I romanticize that it's for me and helping me, I'll never do it. But yeah, oh my gosh, just sometimes games just are written so eloquently, and it feels almost intentional just to hurt you. Another example, for this, for at least for me, was Xenoblade 3. I think Xenoblade 3 was a really beautiful game, and I loved its story, and it felt almost intentional to stab me specifically. Really great game. I don't think I'll ever play it because I don't think I can, but it was a really good game. I just felt like it was very targeted. Okay. I'll continue on the mortality thing. I think that there's a lot of difficult things to deal with when it comes to mortality and people, because there's always a conversation of like, what if, right? Like if you knew that this is your last week on Earth, right? Your last week surrounded by the people you love, like what would you do? And whoa, that's a really deep question to think about, right? But genuinely, what would you do? How would you spend it? Like, because I think there's this thing where I think a lot of people, when they're presented with the actual process, you have to process grief while you're still alive. And then there's this entire thing where the most awkward feeling in grief is kind of grieving somebody that's still alive, right? So I don't know, just weird things to think about. And I don't think that there's a perfect answer, but I think one of the harshness is that I don't think anyone ever really like, that's not true. I'm not gonna say like nobody really talks about this, because people do, but I think something that people like don't really prepare others for, because you really can't, is just, God, I'm gonna say this as nicely as I can, but some people just don't know when to not say something. I think a lot of people get it in their head that they need to say something, whether it's because they feel like they need to help this person or they need to appear like they care. And I think that it genuinely, if you don't have something that you think will actually be beneficial and it doesn't sound like a platitude, don't say it and just admit, hey, I don't think I have anything I could say for you right now. And I think that's gonna, that, depending on the person, will probably do more than saying something false, or something that could be perceived as false, right? And, I don't know. A lot of the other stuff that I don't think they really prepare you for is the fact that you have to deal with, like, regular social stuff at the same time. And oh my gosh, yeah. I feel like I'm being too transparent about this, but yes, I feel like just some people really like don't get continued existence after a loss. So I'm not saying that this should be like more like widely known, because I think however much people are willing to share or tell is entirely up to the person that's gone through it. But it's one of those things that I think if you are going through it, you can experience a lot of pain and anger at the world if everything feels like too normal, or everything's moving on too fast. There's something I can like immediately point to, but I don't know how to point this out without feeling targeted. But it's I feel like this is general enough, so I think it's weird whenever like socially we put the onus of checking in or reaching out on the person that's grieving. And I think that recently we're actually doing a better job of trying to shift the narrative to help people that have not been in the situation to understand that there's alternative ways to reach out and check in than putting the onus on them, which I think is good. But I think there's still a lot of difficulty there. I will say that, I mean, obviously that doesn't like solve the issue, because if it's somebody that you're already not really talking to, it can become another thing. And or maybe it's somebody that like you thought you had a good relationship with, and it turns out to be like purely transactional, right? Then like that can just like cause more burns than intended. Or it's like they'll only reach out to you if you reach out to them first, or some shit like that, and then it just goes on and perpetuates. And the next thing you know, you've spilled your heart out, and then they're like, well, sorry to hear, bucko, and then they go on with their day and expecting you to reach out, and you're like, well, damn, I kind of feel disrespected, I'm not gonna reach out, or some shit like that, right? I don't know. This is all like a stupid hypothetical. I say it's a stupid hypothetical, but I fully believe that somebody has done this before. I don't know. Maybe you had like a relationship with somebody that like started like purely transactional and then became something more, but because that was like rooted in like transactional, like neither of you like actually internally felt close enough to like rely on the other one. I don't know. Like again, I can make up as many hypotheticals as I want to, and like while they are hypotheticals, it's 100% happened to somebody. So who knows? Yeah, no, anyway. Didn't really mean to make this like wholly like grief-centered, but I guess I'll go the full mile, right? If you're grieving, it doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter how big it is, because grief takes many shapes and forms, and you can grieve something small. You can grieve something big. You can feel indifferent to something big and feel like blissfully like in awe that that small thing happened. Everything is like it's all like valid. Just like do what you gotta do and take care of what you gotta take care of. Like genuinely, it's okay to step back. It's okay to say, hey, things are moving too fast right now, I can't do this right now. Take the time for you. Don't push yourself to do more, be more, or keep up when you just like don't feel like you physically can, because it's okay. I don't know. I feel like anything I say about like just like taking care of yourself, like it'll come up as a falsity, because well, no shit, right? But genuinely, I don't think enough people hear it. And at least not enough people internalize it. That genuinely focus on yourself. Don't stress. It's okay to not be okay in like its truest form, right? If you've experienced like a really painful loss and you're grieving it and people expect you to be okay in the next 6 months, bullshit. You won't be. You never will be. The hardest thing about human mortality, okay, here's something I can't talk about. The hardest thing that people don't talk about was like human immortality, and being presented with it and grieving the loss of somebody, regardless of how close you were to them. It changes your perception on life as a whole. Whether you recognize it or not, subconsciously, it's like a lot of people don't really think or perceive death, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think most people need to be thinking about it. And a matter of fact, I really just don't think that it's the number one thing that like just, it's cool if you have answers to it or you can talk about it, but it's never a requirement or an expectation, I think. So again, most people don't think about it. Most people don't perceive it. So when it happens, it's forcing it into your wider perception, not just a subconscious like, oh, I know this will happen, but I don't really know what it looks like. I don't know what it does, right? And you have to be directly presented with the fact that somebody's existence has just ended and they will never make a new memory again, right? So again, it's one of those things where it's like if you've never experienced it before and you've seen it happen, regardless of how close you were to that person, it's suddenly now something in your brain that says, oh, this isn't something I like realistically won't see. This is something that I will see. And not everyone's brain's the same. Some people obviously like perceive this entirely differently, but for most people, right, this is going to be like a genuine like shift in perception. And that's not going to mean that you suddenly change how you live your life or anything like that, but it is genuinely going to cause like a change in your brain, especially if it happens as like you're an adult. Because losing somebody whenever you have a developed like brain and a sense of understanding of the world versus when you're kind of too young to understand what it all implies, two very different things. It's even worse if it's like somebody you care about, but yeah, I don't think people really prepare you to have those conversations about dealing with the existentialism of it all. But that's again, people mostly turn to like other systems for that, or they choose not to think about it. Either way, do whatever you gotta do. Oh my god. Sorry for the slight derail. I've genuinely never once thought about the loading screens here whenever I record these. That's crazy. Yeah, wild. Oh well. Anyway, I feel like this has been a really I've tried to keep it like lighthearted, right? But the topic matter is like depressing, or it can be hard. So if you're still here, I guess, God bless your soul, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Here, I can do something. You know what really annoys me? Fucking, no, give me a second. I can't just like switch my voice like that. I can't be doing that shit here. But yeah, no. You know what really annoys me is like, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but oh my gosh, it feels like relationships have gotten so transactional recently. And maybe it's just like how my brain perceives stuff, but oh, it's horrible, right? I don't know. There's like this friend, right? And I felt like pulling, like getting, like talking to her regularly, or just getting like responses to my messages. Like half the time was like pulling teeth. Like, I don't know. This is supposed to be funny, but like it kind of is, because it's like genuinely we'd be like off and on, like maybe like at best like weekly, maybe like a week would go where we'd like talk for a bit, but then like we'd like it'd be like blank for like 3 weeks, 2 weeks, like a month or some shit like that. And it's really funny because neither of us really knew how to deal with it. I think that's, yeah, no, that's fair. And the place I was in, I didn't have the brain to deal with this, which I had expressed, and I did the best of my ability to communicate, but obviously it's like it's still a two-way street, and I just objectively couldn't put in the same effort I needed to. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know. People are weird, and I feel like there's like a lot of like failure to understand how like life changes a person. So I don't know. Who knows? Woo! Oh, I've got a funny idea for a topic. Alright, okay, we can do something. Wait, here, okay, let me finish the song, and depending on the time, we'll either cut it or I'll keep going. Cause this is genuinely a fucking downer. I do want to like end on like a jovial note and say, like, despite like everything and despite like the horrors that like life will present at you, like, do your best to enjoy it. Life has meaning because you're here. You like whether it's positive or negative, you make an impact on every single person you've interacted with lives. And obviously to lesser degrees, like the person that you just like looked at like across the street probably isn't gonna have the same impact of like that ex-partner you've had for like X time, right? But you know, there's levels to this, and regardless, you hold a footnote in someone else's story, just as others hold a footnote in yours. I don't know. Life's worth living and all that jazz, right? So like, just live it, enjoy it. Make a life worth living. Make a life worth other people remembering, or some shit like that. I don't know. Whatever jumbled words I'm saying, if any of them reach you, then that's the point. But I'm not gonna be the best person to say stuff like that. At least not in like a broad sense. Okay, 34 minutes. I'm willing to just. Alright, we'll end it after one song then. Okay. So here's okay, so here's some more positive note. So some music I'm working on right now. I have 3 EPs in the works. Okay, so music's like half done for one of them. Music's in progress for the other one. And then technically speaking, the music is written for the last one. Written, not produced, and the production could change the composition pretty hard. So we'll see. But yeah, that's the music that's coming. Honestly, I would love for at least one or two of these to get another artist, or maybe just like a couple artists, to make a variation on the track. So like a remix or an alternate flip, just because I think that'd be cool. And then I wanna burn it on CDs and pass them out or sell them at the next event I go to. Probably not sell them because I'm not super confident in some of the quality, specifically on this third EP. But the third EP is not for an amazing sense of quality. It's because I want to bookend something. One of the songs that's going on one of the EPs, God. Really, I might make a new version of it just because I think it's a really weird listen to put with the other stuff, especially because that I really don't think it makes sense on its own. It does to me, but I made it. I know exactly what my intentions were when I made it, but I think if you just randomly heard it, it wouldn't make sense. But yeah, that's where I'm at musically. My band's kinda irked right now because I haven't really had the same time and effort to make new stuff for them. But we're gonna cover some video game music now, so that's gonna be fun. That cover album might get put out soon. Soon being like in months, but who knows. Oh my god. Okay. See, the hardest part about ending this episode is that means I need to export this and then upload it. And I don't know if this is an episode that should get uploaded or not. To be fair, this is a way easier upload to me, I think, than the Unbeatable one. Even though I think that they're probably pretty similar. Who knows? Alright, well, either way, genuinely, enjoy life and enjoy living, and take care until I see you next time. Ooh.